All right, let's talk about the inner circle of title contenders this year. So the obvious four teams: Nets, Bucks in the East, West, Warriors, Suns. The interesting thing with the Nets is that they're sixth in defense right now. The one thing I'm noticing is that teams are shooting poorly from three against them. They're currently second in the league in opponent three-point percentage in a good way. You know, it's Isaac Okoro being left a little open, Grant Williams or Al Horford, or dropping on a Ricky Rubio screen, so in theory it is by design. And they've had moments where they're loading up inside and they're trusting that they can close out on guys, and sometimes it's switch a lot of stuff, sometimes it's drop with the big guy or whatever. So we'll see. My gut is that they're not the sixth best defense in the league, but the fact that they're not towards the bottom is a huge win, and it suggests that they can be mid-tier, but also Patty Mills can't miss. LaMarcus has been about as good as you could have asked him to be. Now on the flip side, Blake has really struggled offensively, especially from three. We'll have to see there. And they've also kind of gotten the defensive rebounding under control. They're still not towards the top of the league in that or anything, but they're not the worst in the league either, so that could be a win for them overall. The other thing is Harden, which to be honest I'm not really concerned about. Now to think about them in a series against the Bucks, let's say, the Nets by design thing of loading up inside and then hopefully closing out to shooters, especially shooters who you're willing to give an open look to, will that go over as well when you're facing Middleton and Giannis in a pick and roll? Assuming that the Bucks would spam that and not just go into a what the hell do we do right now half-court offense, which we saw against the Nets for a decent chunk of that round 2 series until they figured it out. Now to talk about the Bucks a little bit more, if I didn't mention Bobby Portis, he's been awesome from three, great at the rim, grabbing offensive rebounds. And yeah, I think they'll be fine. I don't really care about their early season struggles because of health or whatever. To think about the other teams in the East who could play themselves into this, obviously there's Philly, and that to me just requires a Ben Simmons trade. Or the crazy world in which he comes back and everything's chill. If none of that happens, then I think you're really hoping that Tyrese Maxey's ascension doesn't stop where it's at now, and he's running a bunch of screens, and he's hitting pull-up shots, and he's killing teams on floaters or whatever, and he's Ja Morant-esque at finishing around the rim, and he can be that extra source of shot creation on top of Tobias, Seth Curry, and Embiid going Wilt Chamberlain basically in the postseason. The other one's Miami, and the thing with the Heat is they have these moments where their offense slows down and it becomes Jimmy dribbling the air out of the ball. It doesn't happen a lot, and the advanced numbers would tell you it really barely happens at all. But I'm telling you, from watching the team, it happens sometimes, and it freaks me out. I mean, sometimes you've got Jimmy attacking mismatches, Lowry and Bam doing their screens, Robinson and Hero flying around off of Bam, post-ups. Like, sometimes it looks great, and other times it's like, oh, there's 9 seconds on the shot clock, Jimmy's dribbling, and I guess he's just going to try to create something out of nothing. And that's not me blaming Jimmy, I just think it happens for whatever reason sometimes. Anyway, on to the West. The two obvious ones, Phoenix and the Warriors. With the Warriors, we're still waiting on Clay. Wiseman's going to play somewhat. Is it a little alarming that Kevon Looney is that important for them at center? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it'll be impossible to find a center by the time the season ends. Of course, they've had Bielitsa chip in with some minutes. Draymond will go to center sometimes. Besides all that, I'm just trying to picture how the Warriors would defend the Suns pick and rolls. Because of course, Chris Paul, whatever it is, he's got a counter for you, right? So what does that all look like? Do they have to go to Draymond more at center? Does James Wiseman have a chance of surviving against the Suns offense? Would the Warriors just say, screw it, Draymond at 5, switch everything, that's the only chance we have against him? I don't know, man. Because then you're also asking, well, is DeAndre Ayton then getting post-up opportunities on Draymond? Can he score there? Because, of course, Draymond's post defense has been great. Now, as far as how the Suns could defend the Warriors, I mean, to me, the most interesting thing there is, can DeAndre Ayton hang around defensively? So far, Ayton has answered every question about him on defense. But the Warriors are kind of the final boss for being a good defensive 5. Especially when it's Draymond at center and he's setting a screen for Steph. Anyway, to talk about the teams in the West who I think are on the outside looking in right now. With the Lakers, I mean, it's been talked about enough. The roster's worse, especially when it comes to role players. LeBron's reliability. I think Westbrook has been better lately. I mean, he was huge in that comeback against the Pistons. He was awesome against the Knicks. He also committed 6 turnovers versus the Knicks, but I do feel like His turnovers have been a little down the past like 5 or 6 games. But they still have LeBron and Anthony Davis, and just from that alone, I just have to keep them in the we'll wait and see category. Should be said with the Frank Vogel stuff, when LeBron James is on your team, patience goes out the window. So for Vogel's sake, let's just hope that they figure it out, whether that's funneling ball handlers to AD and Dwight for however many minutes you're going to have a center next to AD, whether that is playing a more aggressive defense just to force these guys to get into ball handlers a little more often. I don't know what the solution is with this roster, but again, for Frank's sake, let's hope he figures it out. And then for the other teams, I mean, the Clippers, it's obvious. If Kawhi's back with enough time to get himself right, then they're right there, no matter what their seeding is in the West. The Nuggets, I mean, with the MPJ thing, and now PJ Dozier, and Jokic has missed a couple, even if Jamal Murray comes out, they just might not have enough guys, even if Aaron Gordon is quietly having a hell of a season defensively. Gotta give a little nod to the Mavs, because as Porzingis has been great, it just makes them more interesting. I still think Luka needs to be in better shape. And then we talk about Utah. Yes, Jazz fans, I did not forget about the Jazz. Look, man, the easy thing to say with Utah is just they've got to prove it at this point, because we've seen year after year, they get into a tough playoff series, and then they just start going, what the hell do we do now? And I know everybody wants to blame Gobert. It's not all his fault. And while I'm here, he's been by far their best player this season. But yeah, they're still on the outside.